apple juice is just so good. I'm obsessed with it right now. I go through like phases. Summer's like an orange juice phase for sure. And now I'm like kind of over orange juice in a sense, but it's coming back. Like oranges are really coming into season right now. So orange juice is really starting to taste delish. Apples are very high in malic acid, so they can help clear like gallstones. They dilate the bile ducts. So apples and apple juice are specifically very anti-inflammatory. That's if it's pure and organic, of course. Iron supplements without constipation. I think the two are not gonna go together. Iron supplements do cause constipation because they feed parasites and bacteria and things like that. I think iron like skin patches are a much better option. Is it bad to see mucus when you do a coffee enema? I don't want to say it's bad. It's one of those things where like it's good, but it's also gross. But it's a sign that we probably needed it to happen. Are pumpkin seeds safe for PCOS? I know, silly question, but I get scared eating seeds. I'm not a big fan of seeds, honestly, just because they're phytoestrogenic. I don't really like women that have PCOS when they eat too many like phytoestrogens. That would be like seeds, beans, grains. Again, not to scare someone away. If you really love pumpkin seeds and you're like, give me all the pumpkin seeds, then enjoy them in moderation. But it's not really a thing is it okay and is it not okay, but like, is it a really like a source of joy in your diet? And if it is, then what is it replacing? Because sunflower seeds or pumpkin seeds are not really that good. But if you love them, then go for it. It's just one of those things where seeds are winter foods, meaning that when you were in the summertime, you like, let's say 1,000 years ago, you're walking around in nature and there's a ripe piece of fruit just hanging from that tree. It's juicy, it's delicious, and it just looks so good. And then there's like some seeds just that fell on the ground. Are you going to reach for the seeds and crunch on those and be like, nah, I don't feel like that ripe, juicy fruit today? Or are you going to be like, juicy fruit all the way? That's what I say when I say like summer food, juicy fruit, or winter food, pumpkin seeds. Remember, food is information. It translates to our body what we want to translate to our body. And unfortunately, we live in a modern world, well, fortunately and unfortunately, where we have access to everything. And so we have to be very specific of what foods we want to eat to inform our body of how we want our bodies to work. Summer is a time of plenty, being fertile, being abundant, having lots of sunlight, having lots of those fertility hormones, which is what we want. So that's what we want to translate to the body. This is why I'm not a huge fan of winter foods like grains and beans and nuts and seeds. Those are famine foods. Those are foods that we would reach for if there was no access to ripe, abundant fruits and animal foods and dairy and things like that. How to know if you've got a good quality orange juice. There's a website called toxinlist.com. I really like it for like finding high quality supplements. But there's also a recommendation for orange juice. So there's sometimes orange juice, they use like pulp dissolvers, which are chemicals. They'll just like juice the orange. It'll have pulp in it, and then they'll put a pulp dissolver in, and it'll be pulp free, but it's really like dissolved pulp. So I'm always looking for things that don't have pulp dissolvers in there. But it just really depends. You could taste it. Like, does it taste good? But Kirkland's is pretty good. Trader Joe's is pretty good. What else is pretty good? Uncle Matt's brand is pretty good. I'm usually opting for organic if I can. I recommend you do it if you can afford it. If it's a burden to you financially, then don't do it. Don't worry about it. But yeah, just look for like a higher quality brand. I usually do a like fresh squeezed orange juice. I am fortunate to have like my local health food store has an orange juice machine that like you put the fresh oranges in and you squeeze your own OJ, but I know not everyone can like squeeze their own OJ, so just look for a higher quality brand. Is there anything that specifically needs to be supplemented for Hashimoto's? I take 2 Brazil nuts a day like you mentioned, and what about a liver cleanse? It really depends on the person. Everyone, the thing is we love to identify ourselves by our disease, like, oh, I have Hashimoto's, and so everyone with Hashimoto's is like therefore the same. And I'm like, no, absolutely not. What has driven you to this condition is completely different than the next person that has Hashimoto's, and they have a different set of circumstances. So you're looking at your environment. Are you living in an environment with mold, lots of EMFs? You know, you're right next to a Wi-Fi router when you sleep. You're laying next to your phone that's on. Are you in a toxic relationship that you don't feel heard, you don't feel listened to? Are you working a job that you hate? We first got to eliminate stressors. We got to set our environment up for healing. That's really the first step. If we're in a horrible environment that's stressful and miserable, there's no way we're going to heal. The second thing is nutrition. Are we balancing our blood sugar? Are we getting lots of nutrient-dense foods that our body can digest, or is our digestion always effed up? Are we always bloated and we burp and we have heartburn and we gain weight at the sight of carbohydrates and we can't poop? Those are things that need to be fixed first, just with nutrition alone. No supplements. Supplements are just a supplement to an already good diet and lifestyle. So you're looking at your whole diet and lifestyle and you're saying, what needs to be supplemented? What am I maybe not getting? For example, okay, so I live in a place where it's cold and dark. I don't get a lot of sunlight. And so I know that I need sunlight for health. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure I get red light therapy in maybe 3 times a week for 15 minutes so I can get some of that infrared light exposure. I'm also going to make sure that I get exposed to some type of UVB or incandescent light therapy to create vitamin D. And I'm going to probably take a low-level vitamin D supplement to make sure that my vitamin D is covered. There you go. That is how you properly think through supplementation. It's not like, oh, I think I need zinc because somebody told me zinc's good for my thyroid. I'm going to take zinc now. No. Sit back and say, do I get enough zinc in my diet? Do I get oysters in semi-regularly? Do I eat beef liver semi-regularly? Do I eat a lot of nutrient root vegetables and animal foods? Yeah, I do. Okay, I'm probably good on the zinc. And if I feel like there's a time in the future where I'm not good on the zinc, I'm going to test first to make sure I'm not taking a bunch of meaningless supplements or throwing my minerals further out of balance. So I never blanketly recommend supplements ever because it's so different for each and every person. It's not about like, oh, what do I need to supplement for this issue? It's like, what is driving this issue in the first place? A diagnosis gives you nothing except for telling you that something needs to change. And so it's your job and your responsibility to say what needs to change. What has gotten me to this point of such dis-ease? My body is in such a dis-ease state. It's in unease that I have now been diagnosed with a disease. And that is where we find our answer. When we ask the right questions, which is why, that is where we find our answers. But supplements should not even be looked at or thought about until the foundation has been laid with nutrition, lifestyle, or nutrition, stress, sleep, exercise, and sunlight and movement outside, like, exposure to nature. I just read something about the anti-Malarian and PCOS. Thoughts? I think some people have weird anti-Malarian hormones, AMH, but if you're talking about, they're saying like it's the gene that causes PCOS. Again, I don't really care because we still have PCOS, so what are we going to do about it? I know you said no seeds, but almond butter is so good. I've been trying to switch to cottage cheese instead. Again, like, it's okay to have whole foods, you guys. There's nothing wrong with almond butter. It's just overeating it. And it's always the relationships of fat. So if we're getting tons of polyunsaturated fats in comparison to our saturated fat intake, we're going to cause inflammation. If we're having some almond butter here and there, it's not going to be a problem. The only time it's going to be a problem is if people have been excessively eating nuts and seeds without really getting enough saturated fats into their diet, or they have a lot of inflammatory conditions. They're inflamed. They've been diagnosed with an inflammatory, like an autoimmune disease, hypothyroidism. At that point, then, okay, nuts and seeds are maybe being a little too anti-thyroid for your liking. Anxiety spikes when period is coming. Why? Probably low progesterone. I would make sure you get your progesterone levels tested on day 19 to 21 of the cycle. Keep in mind, guys, that if we have, right before we ovulate, which is going to happen mid-cycle, we have an estrogen spike. Estrogen is the hormone of growth, you guys, right? So we're having this egg, it's coming to fruition, it's about to drop, and that growth hormone estrogen needs to spike to bring on that ovulation, which is an egg drop. Once that egg drops out of the sac now becomes a gland called the corpus luteum. The corpus luteum is what's responsible for your luteal phase, and your corpus luteum is supposed to start making you progesterone. And so even though estrogen spiked before your period, you had no progesterone ovulation. So pre-ovulation, you really had no progesterone. It was just estrogen coming to this head to bring on ovulation. Once you ovulate, estrogen is supposed to kind of go down a little bit, and progesterone is supposed to come into the picture and become the dominant hormone the last half of the cycle. I would say 9 out of 10 women do not have this happening. They are estrogen dominant due to the plastic exposure in our environment, birth control use, poor detoxification, poor diet. We're under eating, or we're eating a ton of rabbit food that doesn't do anything for our body. And we have to actually focus on fertility. We've got to focus on a good, powerful ovulation. And the way that we do that is with lowering stress, making sure we're sleeping really good, making sure we're eating a really nutrient-dense diet, making sure we're getting the nutrients we need to create robust amounts of progesterone so we can outshine that estrogen and we can move it out of our body. But if we have poor detoxification, meaning we're not pooping regularly, we eat a lot of junk, we drink out of plastic water bottles, we use a lot of crappy chemical-rich hygiene products, our detoxification systems are bogged down. And so when our liver is clearing all these hormones, the second half of the cycle, your liver has to be clearing estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, cortisol, everything. Where you're going to have problems, and they're going to specifically be heightened that second half of the cycle or pre-period. Sorry, that was a long explanation. Tips for boosting progesterone. Eat very regularly, so balance your blood sugar. Every 3 to 4 hours, have a meal with protein, carb, and fat. Make sure you're strength training. Exercising regularly is really good for you. Getting enough sunlight. If you don't get out in the sunlight, that can absolutely lower progesterone. If you're not sleeping well, that's very important. And then overall lowering stress in your environment. Those are going to kind of be my first tips. There are a lot of supplements and things that you can take and ways to boost progesterone. But first and foremost, those foundations need to be laid. Honey is beneficial for health, right? Absolutely. Ways to lower prolactin and increase dopamine. Yeah, so keep in mind that prolactin is a dopamine suppressor. And so the lower our dopamine is, the higher our prolactin will go. And the higher prolactin is, the more dopamine will be suppressed, which is why women get postpartum depression, amongst other reasons. So we have to really focus on just increasing overall dopamine. And how do we increase dopamine, you guys? We feel good. We do things that feel good and make us very, very happy. We get out of a rut. We take care of ourselves. We do things for fun. We laugh. We enjoy our lives a little more than we've been doing. And then prolactin is a stress hormone, and so in that case we want to lower stress. And I'm not just saying external stress, like stressful job, whatever. I'm talking about internal stress as well. We've got to get our blood sugar balanced. That's the first and foremost most important thing we can be doing, because when our blood sugar is going up and then down, our body has to manually raise blood sugar using stress hormones. Cortisol and adrenaline's purpose is to have you break down that delicious, lovely muscle that we want for awesome hormonal and metabolic health. You break it down into protein. That protein gets sent to the liver and gets turned into sugar to keep your blood sugar stable. We don't want that happening. And so the way that we can balance blood sugar manually is just by eating every 3 to 4 hours to make sure we don't ever drop into that bottomed out state and force our body to break itself down for food. Does that make sense? Oh gosh, my dog. I'm sorry, you guys. You guys know the drill. If you've been here for the last hour, he wants to come in and out of my office. He thinks okay, this is a fun game. It's not fun for me, buddy. Okay, so ways to increase sex hormone binding globulin. Okay, balance your blood sugar. Like I just said, I know I sound like a broken record, but you've got to balance your blood sugar. High insulin a lot of times will drive sex hormone binding globulin down. And so a lot of times there's inflammation involved, because when we have high insulin, we're usually struggling with some type of resistance to insulin. What causes resistance to insulin? Well, the cells are inflamed, the cells are stressed out. A lot of times this has to do with estrogen, but a lot of times it also has to do with gut health. So how is your digestive health? Are you constantly bloated? Do you constantly have heartburn? Or having like good 2 to 3 bowel movements a day? You don't have to strain for them. You feel like digestion is really good. Your food moves through your digestive tract at a really good pace and everything like that. So a lot of times it has to do with inflammation and just detoxification. Your liver's kind of bogged down from what's going on in the gut. And so those toxins stemming from the gut, that endotoxin is driving inflammation in the cells. So that was a long way of saying we want to balance our blood sugar to get insulin down and focus on ways that we can lower inflammation in our specific bodies. What can you take instead of Tylenol for very painful cramps? I take aspirin. Aspirin is a non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drug that is actually just made out of acetylsalicylic acid, which is actually derived from things like white willow bark. So that's very different than the COX inhibitors or like Tylenol, which is super, super stressful for the liver. And aspirin is actually very powerful at blocking prostaglandins. I actually take aspirin daily for preventative measures. Decaf coffee okay when you have PCOS? All coffee is okay when you have PCOS. You just don't ever want to drink coffee on an empty stomach. You always drink it after a nutrient-rich meal that contains protein, carb, and fat. What about seeds and nuts and beans for protein sources when you're vegan? There's very little protein in beans and nuts and seeds. And even the protein content that is in there is pretty much bound up by anti-nutrients. Good luck absorbing it. It's kind of a common misconception that beans, nuts, and seeds are protein foods. They're really not. Those nutrients are very bound up with phytic acid that, I'm trying to think, like, I guess even with high stomach acid levels, like, you really can't break that bond. I wouldn't consider those protein foods at all. What type of diet would you recommend for someone with PCOS? I don't recommend diets for PCOS. I recommend nutrient-dense, metabolic supportive foods. I recommend checking out the book How to Heal Your Metabolism by Kate Deering, or check out my program Fully Nourished, which walks you through how to eat, has a recipe book, and just live your life in general, nutrition-wise, foundational. What are your thoughts on celery juice? It's a rich source of potassium, which is why people think it's like magic, juice from God. It's just because a lot of people have low potassium and they need potassium, and so they choose to drink it with nasty ass celery juice, which, okay, you do you, boo. I prefer to drink orange juice and coconut water for my potassium. Do you think that so many women are having PCOS because as women we're doing more masculine things than before, or is it just our lifestyle? That's a really good question, and I think absolutely yes. In this age of feminism, we're kind of like, we can do everything that men can do, and it's like, I can absolutely do everything that men can do, but I don't really want to actually. I embrace my femininity, and I think that we can be just as powerful, but in a different way, right? That kind of divine feminine. And I do believe it is because we're kind of pushing that masculine side of things, and we're trying to be the career person and be it all. And it's you can do it all in the sense of you can have a career and have children, and absolutely, but it's going to be stressful. It's absolutely going to be stressful on your body. And so it's one of those things where my dog, I just sat on him. Stop it. You don't like that? Okay. So I think that it has to do with that, but I also see that a lot of women are being born to women that are third generation birth control users. So I actually started to make a like connection. I really do think birth control use has a role to play in driving polycystic ovarian syndrome up. I think that keep in mind that we know that birth control depletes the nutrients needed for proper use of glucose and insulin sensitivity. And so why are a lot of women that I've worked with, their mom was on birth control up until a month before they got pregnant with them. And that was true for my mom. My mom went off birth control and right away she got pregnant with me. So I do think it has a lot to play with the estrogens in our environment, the fact that we're trying to be, more like men, and in the sense of like we're just go, stress, trying to take it all on. And our bodies are way less resilient than men. I hate to break it to you guys, but we do not have the same, I guess, like metabolic and hormonal tenacity as men. We're a lot more fragile because our hormones are changing so much throughout the month. And so because of that, I think it's a mixture of how we live and our environment, what we're exposed to, birth control, that kind of thing. That was like a horribly like not graceful way to explain that, but yes, I do think you're right on the money with that. Where can I find reviews or success stories from students of your Fully Nourished course? I would really like to join. Yeah, so that we're actually working on getting the reviews up on the page. I kind of wanted to wait till people had been in Fully Nourished for about 2 or 3 months before I took reviews, and we have quite a bit. So I'll be posting more on Instagram soon, and check out the page. It will be updated with a lot of reviews. Do you believe postpartum anxiety is linked to having PCOS? It's not necessarily linked to having PCOS. Keep in mind, guys, that PCOS has nothing to do with the issue. We never say, I have PCOS. It's, I have symptoms of PCOS, because every person with PCOS is different. And we have specific hormonal issues driving PCOS. It's not just like, I have PCOS, I have an uncurable disease. It's, I have thyroid issues, I have low progesterone, I have elevated testosterone, I have imbalanced blood sugar, I have a ton of toxic exposure, I have mineral deficiencies, all driving metabolic dysregulation, which therefore got me diagnosed with PCOS. That's very different than saying, I have PCOS, what do you do for PCOS? No. What do we do to balance out that body? And yes, all of those things that I just listed, thyroid issues, low progesterone, mineral deficiencies, magnesium deficiencies, those do drive postpartum anxiety. So yes, I mean, the hormonal issues that drive metabolic dysregulation, which therefore drives PCOS, absolutely could drive anxiety, postpartum or not. When should I test progesterone? When I have a cycle of 70 days. You can already assume your progesterone's low. Is it possible to get hyperthyroid when using bioprogesterone, or isn't related? It is possible. I've actually seen it happen with a friend of mine. What she saw was that her thyroid was kind of kicking into gear. I think she was hypothyroid before, and then when she started taking progesterone, she got hyperthyroid for a bit, and it was kind of just like her thyroid balancing out. But no, usually I don't see why, I would say it's kind of a stretch to get hyperthyroidism from taking progesterone. Having oily stools, gas, and bloating, wondering why. Poor digestion. Usually it's like the pancreas is really struggling, so pancreatic enzymes are low. Those are going to help you digest fat. The gallbladder might be struggling, probably inflamed. Bile is going to help you digest fat. And so oily stools show that fat's just kind of going right through the body and not being digested properly. Hypoglycemia symptoms before eating and super tired after eating during luteal phase. Any thoughts? How often are you eating? Maybe you're not eating as often as you need to be during that phase. Some people are so severely blood sugar imbalanced, unfortunately, that they have to eat every 1.5 to 2 hours at first until they can kind of push it a little further. Thoughts on probiotics? It just kind of depends on what someone's going through. I don't think they're necessary, and a lot of them can do a lot of damage. Will supporting the conversion of T4 to T3 support sex hormone binding globulin? Yeah, because to support the conversion of T4 to T3, you need to keep blood sugar balanced, and you need to make sure that you're supporting your liver health. Why do you think vegans are so addicted to nut butter and tahini? That is such a good question. Because they're starving. Their body just like wants the most calorically dense thing it can get, and it's opting for tahini and nut butter because they're not eating anything else. But that is the body's cry for saturated fat, absolutely. It's just that they refuse to eat saturated fats, and so therefore they're just scarfing down nut butters. And like honestly, you guys, like, oh, nut butters, like scarfing them down, oh, it just destroys your ability to handle glucose. It just slows everything down so much. What would you eat for breakfast if eggs are not well tolerated? Currently, I eat oatmeal every morning. I would make some type of like hash with, you know, maybe like some breakfast sausage and some sweet potatoes, and have maybe like a little fruit on the side. I would maybe do like some pancakes that were made out of like a steamed and smashed sweet potato, some banana, gelatin, collagen, that type of thing. I would do like maybe like a smoothie that had just like maybe some juice, some frozen fruit, some collagen and gelatin, like some coconut oil. Trying to think what else. And then I would do probably like non-breakfast foods, like things like maybe soup or something. So yeah, I would do maybe like more non-breakfast foods as well. This is kind of uncomfortable to ask, but I have Hashis and zero sex drive for months before even knowing I had a thyroid problem. Is that a connection? Oh yeah. Keep in mind, you know, T3 runs your whole metabolism, even your cells, and healthy women are healthy, happy, hungry, and horny. That's what I always say. And so if you have no libido, keep in mind that's a desire for reproduction or a craving. When you crave salt, you need salt. When you crave sugar, you need sugar, not stevia, right? When you crave carbs, you need root vegetables or some well-prepared grains, not chips. Same thing, like when you crave sex, you're craving reproduction. When you don't, you are probably not. Your body's, you know, trying to save energy for other more important survival type things. So as you support blood sugar and as you get healthier, a lot of times you see your libido improve. Potassium drops versus trace minerals or both. I do trace minerals potassium drops, so you could get them all mixed up into one. Almond milk, goat milk, or raw cow milk, are they all nutritionally equal? Hell no. Goat milk and raw cow milk would probably be pretty nutritionally equal. Almond milk, that's a joke. That is a funny joke. No, almond milk is not nutritionally equal, that's for sure. You have to buy very specific brands of almond milk. Most of them are very toxic, like mold toxic, heavy metal toxic, full of additives that just inflame the gut, and then almonds themselves are fumigated with like these harsh toxins. So you got to make sure almond milk is organic. You got to make sure it's like steam processed. You want to make sure, I personally would not eat almond milk that was processed at a high heat. Keep in mind that almonds are made of polyunsaturated fats, which are not stable at high heat levels. So overall, almond milk, in my opinion, is just like a no-go. Can you tell a little bit about potassium drops? Yeah, I mean, they're just like potassium. They're like little drops that you put into your water, and they can be helpful if you have low potassium or you're under a lot of stress, which a lot of people are. They need potassium, and it can help with like insulin sensitivity. But sometimes what I'll do is, like, if I'm feeling really thirsty or something, like I'll just put a dropper full in my water or my juice and go about my day. Really, like, not overly complicated. It's not like one of my like most intense supplements that I take, but I do make sure to get enough potassium every day. Are people often deficient in potassium? Yeah, especially if they've been under stress, metabolic stress, they have insulin resistance, that type of thing. Thoughts on the best support to use to ease severe anxiety? First of all, I make sure a person is eating plenty of animal foods, animal proteins. I do a lot of like roots and fruits and saturated fats. We gotta first just make sure their diet's on point, or the body is in a state of dis-ease. Like, anxiety is literally the body like trying to crawl out of itself, you know, like fight or flight. Anxiety is just that, it's fight or flight. And so we got to get the body out of fight or flight, and the first way we do that and ease stress on the body is just by giving it what it needs. And so like first, that's what I comb through, because diet's everything when it comes to anxiety, and so many times people are not eating what they need to be eating, and so they're missing out on very important minerals and nutrients. A second thing is I look at their history. A lot of people have anxiety, struggle with copper toxicity, zinc deficiency. So has someone been on a vegan diet, a vegetarian diet? Those really drive like very poor detoxification. If someone's deficient in taurine, which is again very common with like vegan or vegetarian diets, that's going to definitely drive depression a lot of times, but it can also drive anxiety. And then is the person ovulating? Do they have enough progesterone? So there's a lot of things when it comes to anxiety, but the best support is a really properly formed diet and nutrition. If I stroke my arm, it feels quite bumpy. I wonder if it's calcification. Possibly, yeah. Honestly, the only way to know, like when it comes to calcification, if it is to get like a hair tissue mineral analysis or some type of mineral test. I just like HTMAs because they're pretty cheap and they're fairly straightforward. But yeah, it definitely could be calcification. Where can I find detox lemonade chlorophyll recipe? Is it in a highlight on your feed or only in FN? I talked about it a lot. It's in FN for sure. It's just 2 tablespoons of chlorophyll, 2 tablespoons of organic cranberry concentrate, juice of half a lemon or a lime, and a dropper full of milk thistle tincture. Please make a post about seeds and nuts. Missed your comments. Yeah, I will. I'll do something. I know like everyone's gonna come out to get me. They're gonna be like, "Rawr, I like my nut butters," and I'm gonna be like, "I'm so sorry." People are really like dedicated to their nuts and seeds right now because of seed cycling, and everyone's like, seed cycling helped me so much. And I understand, like, you think like cause and effect, but a lot of times it can be some other things going on as well. So dangerous, my calcium potassium got too high with supplementation. Yeah, it definitely can, and you shouldn't supplement every day unless you know you need a supplement. Calcium should never be supplemented in high amounts unless you are taking magnesium for sure. And same thing with electrolytes. Potassium and sodium always need to be balanced. That's why I like trace minerals, because it doesn't just have potassium. How do we get rid of brain fog? We balance our blood sugar. We give our body like exactly what it needs. We make sure we're sleeping. A lot of times people are like, I have brain fog. And I'm like, how many hours do you sleep a night? And they're like, 3. And I'm like, no, you're just tired. I also make sure people are exercising, sweating every day, those types of things. So it's just very important to do the foundations first. And then if you still have brain fog, you want to look a little deeper at the gut. Hey Jess, when will your last live be up on YouTube? Thanks, love ya. Yeah, sorry, it'll probably be up like today or tomorrow. Usually on Saturdays I kind of catch up on that stuff, so it will be up on YouTube most likely by tomorrow. I drink a lot of water but have to pee a ton throughout the day. I know you've mentioned drinking juice and broths for hydration. Can you speak more on that? Yeah, if you guys have to pee more than 5 times a day, it's an adrenaline issue, it's a mineral issue. It's not safe to be peeing more than like 5 or 6 times a day. That's like not normal. And there have been people that I like have told me they pee like 50 times a day, and I'm just like, oh my gosh. So the first sign that we're not hydrated and our body is in a very stressed out state is that we're peeing really, really often. We don't want to be peeing, a ton all day long. So I usually recommend if hydration and water is going right through you, it's really like you go down to the basics. The body has a signal that tells you when you're thirsty. It's called thirst, and we should be really drinking when we're thirsty and not like force feeding ourselves water. A good way to know that we're really like overhydrating is we feel kind of like bloated and heavy and almost like we're retaining a lot of water, like our cells are full of water. Now, some people are dehydrated, and it's because their hydration is poor because minerals are low, and they have low magnesium, low potassium, low sodium. So sometimes adding salt to their water can really, really help, and just like overall drinking a little less. But keep in mind that fruit juices, coconut water, bone broth are all very rich in minerals. And so when you're hydrating with a mineral-rich drink, you are less likely to have it go right through you, or even worse, flush out minerals in the process. And you're actually, putting minerals back into your body on a regular basis, which a lot of times helps you feel further hydrated, and you're not going to feel like you have to go to the bathroom like 80 times a day. What is the cause of varicose veins? How can we prevent them and get rid of them? There's a lot of like speculation, but a lot of people kind of agree that it's estrogen. Hi, I recently moved to a desert climate and I'm pregnant, having a really hard time keeping up with hydration. Any tips? Are you like, do you mean hydration like you just don't, you're not drinking enough water, or you're just feeling dehydrated even though you're drinking enough water? Eat really water-rich foods, like do lots of fruits. Fruit juices make it really easy. Bone broth is a really great way to hydrate. Adding, fruit to your water can be really helpful. I usually recommend just getting some type of stainless steel, like 40-ounce water, thermos, and filling it up and just saying, okay, I'm gonna drink 80 ounces today, and you fill it up twice. So like by the first half of the day, by noon, you should have already drank 40 ounces, and then by the end of the day you should have drank another 40 ounces. It's just a good way to kind of like keep up with your water intake and carry that thing everywhere. Like, people literally think that my water thermos is like attached to me because I carry that thing everywhere. Like, wherever I go, I have my thermoflask because I don't ever want to be caught without water. And I don't ever want to have to drink out of a plastic water bottle, honestly. That's another thing. Literally, when I drink out of a plastic water bottle, I'm like, like, kill me. I'm starting to put on some fat on FN. I feel like my carb tolerance has gone down. Is this possible to go in reverse? It is possible, especially if you didn't start in a great place. So some good tips would be to, instead of doing like a full starch at a meal or full fruit at a meal, do fruits and starch together. So like half a sweet potato and a handful of fruit. Also make sure you're getting enough protein. Sometimes what happens is we kind of go carb crazy and we're like, all these carbs, all these fats, and all these proteins, and that's just going to be like all these calories. So sometimes we're just overdoing it on both the fat and the carbs. Keep in mind, guys, fats are 9 calories per gram, and then protein and carbs are 4 calories per gram. So it's very easy to add on the energy with fats. And a lot of people don't realize that we have, so different calories are burned, or different macronutrients are burned differently. So fats require the least amount of calories to be burned. They only burn about 2 to 3% of your total caloric intake for the day to be burned, as opposed to a carbohydrate will require about 9 to 10% of your total daily calories to be burned. So for example, your body actually has to burn 10% of its daily calories to just burn off a carbohydrate, or to actually utilize a carbohydrate. And so carbs and proteins are way better bang for your buck. So make sure you're not overdoing it on the fat. That's a big one. Is too much fat can absolutely make us fat because it's just super calorically dense. Maybe go a little lower on fats, and then make sure you're hitting at least 100 grams of protein per day. And then make sure you're doing like maybe fruits and roots at most meals. And then if you're doing a lot of grains, that's another thing, is sometimes people just pack on pounds with grains, and so maybe try to hold back on the grains a little bit and lean more heavily on those squashes, those roots, and those fruits. Best foods to support Hashimoto's thyroid. I've talked about it a lot in this live, so go back and watch these lives, but really just nutrient-dense foods, good high-quality proteins, high-quality and anti-inflammatory carbohydrates like roots and fruits, and high-quality fats. How much iodine do you suggest, and from what form? I don't really suggest iodine unless you know where all your mineral levels are at. It can really throw off a lot of things and cause a lot of imbalance. And if you are low in certain minerals, it can actually cause very, very harsh detox. My doctor thinks I have a heel spur. It hurts a lot sometimes. How do I get rid of the pain? I'm not sure, guys. I'm not a doctor. How's your alignment? Are you, do you walk improperly? Do you see a chiropractor regularly to keep your spine in alignment? But yeah, like I guess you could do like a magnesium foot soak or something like that, but I'm not really sure how to get rid of the pain. Tips for hypothalamic amenorrhea when you are a vegan. Don't be vegan anymore. Where's the best place to apply progesterone oil? I would, well, if it's a topical oil, then like on a thinner skin, so like I would do my inner wrist. But if it's an internal progesterone oil, I would rub it into my gums and my lips. Feeling super gross when eating breakfast early after waking up. I get hungry hours after waking up, but then I also get hypoglycemia at the same time when I don't eat breakfast. Help. Drink a big glass of juice when you first wake up, and just kind of like wait until you get hungry. You can also, another trick that works is have an apple right when you wake up. Something light, something that's gonna rev up your metabolism, get things going, that's really light and not hard to digest. And then you'll get hungry about 30 minutes later, and then you can eat breakfast then, you know what I mean? Like, you don't have to force yourself to eat breakfast, just get something into your body. Do you think pure fruit juice, do you think pure fruit juice, I juice myself, is unhealthy? No. Is it okay to use oils for massage, for example, or will it oxidize on the skin? I personally don't like to use a lot of polyunsaturated oils on my skin because it interacts poorly with the sun and will absolutely age me quickly. So, you know, it's not like, oh, like you shouldn't use PUFAs on your skin, but I do it for the anti-aging purpose. Just stopped being vegan after being told I have Hashimoto's. Should I do a liver cleanse? No, you should just eat protein, carb, and fat because that's what your liver needs the most, and protein specifically. The thyroid pharmacist says no dairy for Hashimoto's. What do you think? Almond milk? Ugh. I think she also tells people to eat cruciferous vegetables. And I'm like, have you ever studied nutrition in your life, lady? Are oysters okay for gut issues? Thanks for all your time. Yeah, I don't see why not unless you react poorly to them. What coconut water do you suggest? Just coconut and ingredients working during your life. Yeah, just kind of whatever you can find in your vicinity that's just pure coconut water and doesn't have a bunch of added ingredients and is not from concentrate. I really like Harmless Harvest. I also use, there's one called, it's like a name. It's called like, gosh, I can't remember what it's called now. It's like Jim and something, some names. But yeah, just pure coconut water. Eating lots of sweet potato and carrots for months turning orange color are dangerous. Yes. If you are not converting beta carotene to vitamin A, that is a sign of like slow metabolism, probably like imbalanced thyroid function. I would make sure to switch over to like lighter colored sweet potatoes that aren't orange, or potatoes. And if I was doing like a raw carrot salad, I would rinse it off before I ate it. Have you heard of doing an HCl challenge for low gut? Yeah, I actually already talked about this. Thoughts on peanuts versus nuts? Peanuts aren't nuts, they're legumes. They're pretty high in mold, so I would be careful with peanuts. I know they're so good. I know peanut butter is delicious, but a lot of times it's super inflammatory for a lot of people, so I wouldn't like go overboard with it. Why do you avoid coconut water from concentrate? I don't necessarily like avoid it from concentrate. I just recommend getting a higher quality if you can, but there's nothing wrong with it from concentrate, honestly, as long as it's just purely from concentrate. What does undigested food in stool indicate? That digestion is pretty poor, and probably hydrochloric acid in particularly needs to be supported. I would look into that. What to look for to know if bioidentical progesterone works or is not so good for someone? Would there be only physical or also mental symptoms when not right? Honestly, it's so different for everyone. You would want to just pay attention to your body. Are you good at paying attention to your sleep, your mood? Like, you are the only one that's in your body, and so you're the only one that's going to know if something feels off or something doesn't feel off. And I have a ton of highlight stories on it. I have one labeled bioidentical hormones. I have another one labeled progesterone. So I highly recommend checking those out and digging in a little deeper. But you really just, whenever you introduce anything, you really want to make sure that you're implementing something and you're consciously doing so. You're paying attention to your body while you're doing it. So that if anything happens, you can deem, is this, my body changing, or is this my body reacting? And if it worries you at all, you always have the power to stop. Sweet potatoes give me horrible gas and bloating. Any idea why this would happen? You're just not reacting to them well. A lot of people just need to eat like regular potatoes, and don't tolerate sweet potatoes very well. Tips for getting period back after a vegan diet. First, just get your diet in check. So, start eating, your animal foods and your a balanced diet for the first time in a long time, and give your body a little time to get used to that. It's probably, if it's been a while, it's going to take some time. So I would first give it some time, and then I would look to other issues. Are you under eating calories? Are you over exercising? Are you not sleeping really well? Are you getting enough sunlight? And then if those are a problem, there's always like Vitex is something to look into. Just some herbs that kind of help regulate the cycle. Is pork healthy? It really depends. This question is like, I hate when people ask like, is XYZ healthy? Because like the question, for example, is bread healthy? Well, what bread are we talking about? Are we talking about bread that you cooked yourself? Are we talking about properly fermented sourdough? Are we talking about Wonder Bread? What are we talking about here? And so that's not the right question. It's is sustainable pork that I, am looking at the quality healthy? Yeah, absolutely. Is pork in general healthy? No. It just really depends on the quality and what the pigs were fed. You are what your animal that you're eating ate. So just kind of think of it that way. So is the pork that you're eating healthy? That's the question. What kind of mold is on peanuts? Is it naturally occurring or produced through manufacturing processes? It's just, lentils, beans, legumes in general, which is what peanuts are, they tend to grow a lot of mold on them. They just tend to be high in mycotoxins, and it's just kind of a natural process. But then when they go through processing, mold even grows more. Mold can proliferate, and you can't really control how peanuts are processed. So it just is a very high mold food. It's not like natural or unnatural. I mean, they tend to grow a lot of mold on them already, but the processing doesn't make that any better. So and it's not, I don't really know what type of mold. A lot of times like Aspergillus and other types of mold, but I'd have to test the strains in order to know. Are you still using caffeine on the scalp? Is it helping? Yeah, I mean, it helps grow hair for sure. Is the daily raw carrot best in salad form, or can I just grab 4 to 5 baby carrots? No baby carrots, guys. Baby carrots are horrible for you. They take the deformed carrot. There's no such thing as like a baby carrot that grows. Baby carrots are deformed big carrots that they take, grind up, and then pack into the shape of a baby carrot and soak in chlorine so it doesn't get moldy. Isn't that disgusting? So baby carrots should not be considered a food. Whole carrots only are fine if you're in a pinch, but the raw carrot salad is best. What are you using on the skin for anti-aging? I don't really use anything for anti-aging. I mostly focus internally. I have like the literal laziest skincare routine right now, but I'm thinking about adding some niacinamide serum in and some vitamin E soon. Thank you. What should you implement more in my diet to stimulate my hormones? I don't like dairy. To stimulate your hormones. You're not trying to stimulate anything. You're just trying to make your body feel safe enough to reproduce. When we lose a cycle or we stop ovulating, our body does not feel safe enough to reproduce, meaning grow another human being. And so if your body doesn't feel safe enough to grow another human being, what is needed to create another human being? Lots and lots of energy, proteins, carbs, fats, making sure you're balancing your blood sugar, you're not going through a famine, or you're not going through a long time without eating, that type of thing. And then, once you do that consistently, a lot of times the body will have a period naturally. You're on fire today. I am a little bit spunky today. I am a little bit sassy, Cecilia. You noticed that. Sorry, maybe this is off topic, but what would cause a man to come fast all the time happened suddenly for last months? Is he under stress? Is he not into it? Like, you kind of can pay attention. Like, if he's under stress, that's going to be a huge thing. If they're not into it for whatever reason, they're exhausted, they're really not into it, like, they have the power to hold on, especially like a grown man. So if not, then maybe that's the case, like just not into it, kind of trying to get over with. And it might have nothing to do with you. It might have something to do with him. And then the third thing could be actual physical issues. So low testosterone, a lot of times being driven by stress. So how's his diet? A lot of times men, I would say 9 times out of 10, it's what kind of stressors are they under? Are they under extra stress at work? Are they putting the weight of the world on their shoulders? Are they taking on everyone's problems and trying to like fix everything? Or are they just, go until they drop? That's 9 times out of 10 the problem for men. But then sometimes it's that they're not eating well, they're not exercising, they're drinking too much beer, which is super estrogenic. They're, sometimes smoking, chewing tobacco. I don't know. Like men, they tend to like chug Red Bull to try to like continue to do what they're doing, even though they should just like take a nap. So you kind of want to look at his lifestyle as well and say like, is he under extra stress? Does he need some support? But it could be that he's tired. That's a lot of times the case. To regain period after being on a plant-based diet, I eat a lot of dairy and eggs, but not so much meat. Does eating meat help speed up the process of regaining your period? Not necessarily. It can. So you always want to pay attention to your cravings. The dairy and eggs is actually really good. Maybe try some fish and shellfish if you can, and do a lot of collagen and gelatin if you can. Because that's going to really mimic like a nose to tail style eating, but you're not eating a lot of meat. And then I would maybe tie in meat, once or twice a week. If you start to crave meat, that would be a sign that you probably do need more meat, but most of the time you don't need too much meat, maybe a couple of times a week. Holy cannoli, never eating baby carrots again, thank you. I know, it's so crazy. I used to love baby carrots because they're so easy. Everything that's easy, I just am like, there's something weird there. Let's reevaluate. I'm sorry to like break it to you, because when people hear that about baby carrots, they're like, really? Like, wow, you ruined it for me. He's wanting it, but hard to hold lately, 30 years old. Okay, then if that's it, then I would look into like diet, life, and then ask him if he's stressed out. Like, are you exhausted? Maybe he just needs like a massage. Like maybe he just is really tense and just needs a de-stress and take the pressure off. Sometimes like they have like all this pressure. So if he's stressed out, I would maybe like offer a massage, like maybe just try to relax him a little bit. Maybe make it like a night of him first. And then if that doesn't work, then I would evaluate like nutrition and lifestyle. If he's not getting any break, his body's not getting any break, meaning like not good nutrition, not good exercise, not good sunlight, working too much, never taking time for himself, like his body is needing a break somewhere, and you're starting to see like the bodies can't do everything forever. And that's kind of around the time where it starts to really kick in. Do you recommend filtering fluoride out of our water? I want to get the Berkey and wasn't sure if I should splurge for the fluoride version. Oh yeah, it's worth the splurge for sure. Just because fluoride's so anti-thyroid, so many people are like, why is my metabolism slow? And like, why am I having all these problems? And I'm like, first and foremost, filter that water from fluoride and chlorine. Best Greek yogurt brands you recommend, and should you go for full fat? I think full fat should just kind of depend on your goals. Some people do need the full fat, and then some people need a little less fat. I think it's really whatever you like. Like for me, I love to get higher quality dairy, so sometimes I'll do like the Strauss organic. I do one called, I think it's called Wallaby. That sounds like Wallaby organic or like something like that. I like that one. They do have a lower fat Greek yogurt, which I tend to like. I don't know, like the full fat Greek yogurt for me like tastes so rich. It's like, ooh, like I gotta choke it down. So I actually tend to like a lower fat Greek yogurt, but I think it's just kind of what you prefer. For me, going too high carb and too high fat equals me just getting chub. So I gotta kind of make sure, like if I'm gonna, I like to do when I'm trying to like maybe get a little bit leaner and see my muscles really pop and get back into shape. Like the past 6 months have been so stressful, like life-wise, business-wise, everything. I've just been kind of like F it all. And I don't really, I understood that it would just be, I wasn't really paying attention to my nutrition too much in the fact, like I wasn't really watching my protein, carbs, and fats. I was just making sure to get plenty of all of them. And I probably put on like 10 pounds. That paired with me like not getting as much exercise as I regularly do, really just kind of, my body's going to respond accordingly. So now that I'm kind of getting back into the gym, lifting, I'm watching my fats a little more. Not that fat is bad. We need fat to survive and make a lot of hormones, but too much fat can absolutely cause weight gain. So I like to keep my fats around 30%. What kind of collagen and gelatin would you recommend? I like Great Lakes brand. They're a really high quality brand that you can get on Amazon. What will help a man with hair loss? Is that a hormonal thing like us, for us women with PCOS? Yeah, unfortunately. And a lot of times it's a lot more in depth for men. I highly recommend reading the book Hair Like a Fox by Danny Roddy. It applies to both men and women. How do you know so much? It's really amazing. It's really sick to me because like I've always been this way ever since I was a little girl. I like information just like soaks into my head and I never forget it. And it's like a sickness in the sense of like it's a blessing and a curse. Like I never forget anything, and sometimes it can like it's bad to a fault. Like I have to just like shut up, Jessica, like zip your lips. But Instagram and like my business is now a great outlet for me to share, because now like my friends and family are like, thank God she can hold it in. For collagen, personally, I would recommend pork ears, legs, and cartilage. So I'm a tad lazy with my main subs, taking vitamin E, C, K with aspirin, but felt very off 3 days back, almost impacted. Should I break them up? Could all make me feel off. Yeah, they could totally make you feel off. And vitamin E and aspirin are both blood thinners, so that could be making you feel off. But yeah, like those are that's a powerful stack altogether. So maybe like doing like vitamin E, I would maybe do 2 every other. So maybe do like aspirin K one day, vitamin C and E another day, and go every other. Maybe try that. I break up my supplements like that because I just don't like to take like a huge stack all the time. And I kind of do like what I feel like, oh, I feel a little inflamed today, I'm gonna do my aspirin with K. Or like, ooh, I feel like I need some energy, I'm doing my B vitamins today. You know, like I'm never like, oh, I gotta take my full stack of supplements now. Can I add trace minerals to my water without talking to my doc first? What brand do you use? Usually it's fine. Look into it yourself and kind of determine if that feels like something that you should or shouldn't do. A lot of times trace minerals are things that are already found in our water, things like sodium, potassium, like the trace minerals. But of course, you know, talk to your doctor if you feel uncomfortable with it. I use trace minerals. So there's actually a brand called Trace Minerals. Is your website under construction? I couldn't open anything on the website today. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff that is under construction, and I'm sorry about that. Like, things are just in the back end of my business. Like, I know it looks all the same on the front end, but like on the back end, everything's just like being bulldozed and changed, so it's so much better. Like, I'm working on so much for you guys, so many resources. I'm working on some master classes, like hour-long videos that are going to be free. I'm working on like my whole client experience is completely changing. So that's a long story to say, like, hang in there. Thank you so much for being patient. It's just like I can only do so fast, and I'm just trying to make things better for you. Thank you, love. My gut told me, woo, bitch, don't. How do we regain our sense of smell after a cold? I think it just is going to take time, honestly. Usually. That is the worst, though, like when you're trying to just smell and taste again and you can't, and you're just like, I just want to taste my food. Is it normal for temps to go up week of period? It is not normal for temps to go up the week of the period. However, you do need more fuel while you're menstruating, and your blood sugar tends to be a lot more imbalanced. So if you're eating less or you're not being very careful to balance your blood sugar, you can see cortisol levels and adrenaline levels go up, which can absolutely raise your temperatures. It tends to be like when people are hypometabolic, or they have a low functioning metabolism, they tend to see their pulses and temperatures go down during menstruation, because that's when you have like a clear picture of how your thyroid's actually doing. Okay. Sorry, I'm just like going through the questions because some of these you guys have already asked, so I just don't want to like do a repeat. When do you think one should start taking a prenatal? Just got back period after a year. Oh, congratulations. That's really exciting. I think, do you mean like before a period, or I mean before trying to get pregnant, I think like the longer the better, just to prepare, you know. So I don't think there's like should be any time where like I can only take my prenatal like 3 months before I get pregnant. I think, you know, whenever. There's a lot of people that take prenatals just as their multivitamins. What are your thoughts about the book Medical Medium? Oh, my followers know how I feel about him. I like, you know, there are some stuff that is absolutely relevant. You know, celery juice is not like the all around like healer. It's just super rich in minerals, which help the body, like support the body's natural systems and help them detoxify, plain and simple. But I think like the idea that he has like this spirit telling him like things is just really weird to me. Like I can't handle it. I know you don't like the term adrenal fatigue, but how to fix it when there's really low energy for many months, always sleepy, but waking up at night, muscle weakness, eating regularly won't fix it. Eating regularly is the first step and must be done consistently long term. But a lot of times at that point, if it's not working, then there might be like minerals that are deficient. Potassium, sodium, magnesium are very important. And sometimes actually running like a hair tissue mineral analysis to actually see where you're at is very, very helpful. What do you use to wash your fruits and veggies? It just depends. Like if they're non-organic, I really scrub them well with like apple cider vinegar, and I try to get the peels off. But if they're organic, I tend to do just like a apple cider vinegar and water rinse, maybe grapefruit seed as well. Okay, one more question and then Instagram's gonna cut me off, okay? Sorry guys. How do you feel about people doubting organic foods' authenticity? It's not that organic foods are more authentic than non-organic foods. They just are, regulatory wise, they're allowed to use less chemicals and less pesticides. Still, organic is not amazing, but there's like 200 things allowed as opposed to thousands and thousands. So organic is by no means perfect, but it's a million times better than conventionally grown produce. All right, you guys, thanks for joining me. I'll see you guys soon, and these will be